If you're feeling like a lump on a log, or meaner than a junkyard dog, you've got questions, well I do too. Come on and join the solution revolution. There's answers for me and you. Yeah, there's answers that we can use. Come on and join the solution revolution.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Mender Online. I'm Leo Battenhausen and I'm glad to see you here again, although I can't really see you. But I hope you had a good week. I'm here, you can see a couple of my dogs in the background. Toby on the back couch and Duster over here on my right. Anyway, I hope you had a good week and I'm glad to be back here on Mender Online. Today I want to talk about anger and jealousy. How many people do we know in our lives that are constantly trying to tell us we're wrong? No matter what we do or say, we're wrong. They're challenging us all the time and they have to be right. We all have these kind of people in our lives and they can really drive us to the brink of frustration if we let them. Okay, that's the point here, because these are people that are not happy with themselves, and I'll get into that in a bit, but they can be very trying on us, especially these days in the world of social media, where things are posted and said in retaliation to our comments or our beliefs or what we think is right. They have to be right and they have to prove their point, and they come up with all these solutions and their own information sources and these kinds of things. But this happens in real life as well. They're frustrating. These people are frustrating us with their opinions, their opposition, and they constantly challenge us. They challenge everything we say and everything we do. And why would that be, do you think? Well, there's a lot of reasons that it could possibly be, but I think one of the major reasons for that is envy and jealousy. Envy and jealousy is what's causing quite a bit of suicides, as I spoke about on the last segment, of 10 to 14-year-old girls in this country today. Envying, jealousy, and it's constantly being forced upon us by these kinds of people. They're bullies. They're bullies, and why are they bullies? Because they're not satisfied with who they are, so they see things we're doing, and they're jealous of these things, and they can't take it. So they have to make themselves feel better, and to somehow justify their own existence, they need to challenge everything we say and try to prove us wrong all the time. Now, how often does this happen in relationships or marriages? It happens all the time. When people are married to narcissistic people or otherwise dysfunctional people, it's a competition, apparently, that people face. And marriage and relationships certainly should not be a competition. Social media should not be a competition. However, this is what's becoming of a lot of the people in our country today. Everybody wants to be right. Everybody has to be right. I have to prove my point. I have to be on top of the world. Nonsense. We all have opinions and we're entitled to our opinions. And what gets me about Facebook and other social media pages is that's your page. If people don't like what you post, then don't read it. Go away. I know a lot of people might have mixed feelings about Howard Stern. We all know who Howard Stern is. I've been a fan of his for many, many years. And he's always said, if you don't like what I'm saying, don't listen. And he's right about that. He's not right about everything, but I think he's right about that. So we're dealing with people who have overinflated senses of self. Okay? They were probably raised believing they are the most important person in the world. We know it's the parents that do that. And today's society is encouraging that. So we have a lot of that happening, but this exceeds far beyond just the millennials today. This is older people too that constantly have to feel like they are above and beyond the rest. But these are the people that frustrate the heck out of us. And their insecurities are really what's driving that. And that's my belief and my opinion. They are not satisfied with who they are. So in order to feel some kind of sense of accomplishment or self, they may see you are succeeding and doing things well and successful, and they need to tear you down because they're not having the same experience you are. Now, we choose to let these people do this to us if we engage in these types of conversations and interactions with them. And sometimes it's hard to not be involved with that, especially if we're talking about a spouse or a family member. But depending on what level of family member or contact we're entailing here, there are some things you can do, and probably not engaging with that would be a good one to do. But if it's your spouse, you really need to find out what's going on with that, because how can you have a successful marriage union when one person is trying to constantly put the other one down or tell them they're wrong all the time? But it's born, and it's a product of insecurity, okay, and inferiority on the other person's part. It's usually a feeling that's generated by feeling threatened or under accomplishing, or some way otherwise, feeling like they can't compete with the person they are, terminally breaking down or trying to break down all the time. It's jealousy, folks. It's jealousy over what you've done or what you're doing. And I tell you, 99% of the time, envy can cause people to have to feel right all the time and have to bring people down with what they say and do and have to feel right. Overinflated sense of ego, to say the least. So what do we do with that? Well, this false sense of power they get out of trying to control you with their slandering and challenging is not something you want to be involved with. You can't engage in this conversation, but you also have to be aware of where it's coming from, and it's coming from their own pitiful sense of any kind of accomplishment in their life. These types of people have not accomplished much, and if they have, it's all superficial and on the surface. They're not the real person inside of them, even if they're like, President of the United States, let's say. If they're trying to slander and bring people down in what they're saying, they're not even happy that they're President of the United States. They're the most powerful person in the world, at least it used to be. I don't know if it still is. But if they're bringing people down, and I'm just using that as an example, it could be a CEO of a bank or, some international spy, I don't know. But if they're constantly trying to challenge you, or if you're their spouse or you're their friend or some Facebook entity, then they're not happy internally. Our souls, when they're fulfilled and happy, we're at peace. We are at peace. We know where God wants us to be, and we don't have to prove ourselves to anybody. And that's a really important point. We don't have to prove ourselves to anybody except ourselves and to God. That's my feeling, and that's my belief. And anybody who is in that position, satisfied with who they are, and firm in their beliefs and satisfied with their position in life, will not be this type of person who is constantly trying to override anything you say or do, or prove you wrong, or make you feel inadequate in any way whatsoever. But the more we hear these things, the more inadequacies that were pointed out to us, and it's constant, we're going to start to believe that, because we'll believe anything if it's told to us enough. This is the important thing, too, that we have to start shutting that stuff off and not engaging these conversations and not believing it. Okay? Because we can't be wrong all the time. And look, normal people will admit they're wrong. Normal people that have God and have satisfaction in who they are and in their lives, they don't have a problem saying, you know what, you're right, that could be right. And I'll listen to this and maybe I stand corrected. However, these are the types of people I'm talking about that will never go down that road. They are right no matter what. So there's no room for negotiation. They have to be right. They'll go out of their way to make you think you're a moron and belittle you. So it's not something we want to get involved with, and it's not something we need to keep internalizing. So we need to know where they're coming from and what they're really saying. And what they're really saying is they're disgusted with themselves and they're unhappy people. So that's what we need to focus on when we run into these types of people every day. And it can be at work, and it certainly can be in the family, and it can be on social media. So be careful with that, because social media is that if you allow it to be the devil, it can be the devil. You can sit back passively and, post things and not have to talk to people anymore. You know what? And there's a lot of passive aggressive BS that goes on social media, but you need to be the healthy one. We need to be my mind mender people and friends. You need to be the healthy ones that understand where that stuff is coming from. Hey, if you don't like something somebody's posting on your site, delete them, block them, or ignore it. That's probably the best thing, because these people are looking for a rise out of you. So just ignore that. And that's what we can do in real life too. We have to walk away from these kinds of things. I'm not saying we should be doormats, but I'm saying we don't have to listen to this nonsense and take it and make ourselves feel worse because somebody is jealous of us, or somebody's inadequacies are making them feel like they need to terrorize us emotionally because they don't have what we have. And that's the lesson here today, folks. Okay. These are people who get in the way of our personal peace, our personal joy, and our personal happiness. But we don't have to prove anything to them. Like I said, we need to prove to ourselves and to our God all we are. And that's it. Other people are secondary. If people are truly our friends and support us, they're not going to try to be tearing us down left and right and challenging us all the time. So that's important to know, because it continues on. Now, going back to these suicides of 10 to 14-year-old girls that I talked about last week, they are on the rise right now. They are the highest number of people killing themselves in this country today. 10 to 14-year-old girls. And why? Because there's competition and there's jealousy. They're being bullied because they're not liked enough on these certain sites they go on to get likes because of how pretty they are or how wonderful they are. And this is reality for these girls. I'm not blaming them. They're 10 to 14-year-old children. They don't have the mental capacity to understand what they're getting involved with. But they're leaving their dignity and their sense of worth out there upon boys or men who like them because they're pretty. And if they don't get those likes, they get suicidal. They're not up to the task, who would be, of putting your dignity and your sense of self-worth out there for people who think you're pretty or not. But this is what's happening with these girls. So the jealousy from other girls in attacking them in a bullying situation, and this happens all the time, is causing suicides left and right. And it happens with males too. It just so happens right now the females aged 10 to 14 are at the higher peak. But what is going on? You know, these people, these girls are not being parented correctly. And I know I keep saying that and bringing that up, but their poor little self-esteems are being fed by essential perverts online that like them if they're pretty or not. And these girls are throwing out everything they have, pictures of their genitals and their breasts and themselves naked, or offering oral sex to potential guys who will like their picture. That's nuts, and it's really sick. And if they do all of those things and they're still not getting the likes, what do you think a 14 or 10-year-old girl would do? Because they're not equipped to deal with it. Their brains are not fully developed until 24 years old, which is why they rest on the belief that there should be no internet or technological touching until at least age 16, at the very least, and that's with strict 16 with parental supervision and understanding how and when and who their kids are talking to. I was just talking to someone today about a study that came out about children. Now I'm talking preschool children and perhaps, you know, maybe kindergarten age. When they're handed a book, listen to this. When these kids, these children are handed a book, and if I have one here, I do. Okay, here's the book. Here's a book. It's a dictionary. They're handed this book, folks, and this is what the kids do. Can you see? It doesn't work. They know how to push around a book looking for the site, but it doesn't work. That's where we're at. How does that work? A 3-year-old is going like this, trying to make the book work? What do you think's going to happen when they're 10 to 14 years old if we continue on this path of evil and dependence? It's only going to get worse. Where are the parents? Where are the parents? I kind of got off the subject here, and I know that. I apologize, but I wanted to bring that up because that's, you know, this technology is a pet peeve of mine. Please go to Amazon.com. Pick up my book, Social Side, How America is Loving Itself to Death. America is Loving Itself to Death. The paperback came out recently, and it's a wealth of knowledge. I've been told this book should be taught in college classrooms. I've been told that by more than one person. I don't know how to do that. I would love to do that. So I'm just going to encourage you to please read this book, Social Side, How America is Loving Itself to Death, and you can get it on Amazon.com. Also, please visit the mindmenderonline.com website. That's mindmenderonline.com on the web. This is Mindmender Online for YouTube. I'm Leo Battenhausen. I hope this information I'm sharing with you will sink in and you'll spread that word. I would appreciate that. Please join the solution revolution. That's what we're about. We're going to make the difference. We're going to change this world one way or another with God's help. God bless you, and thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week.